Good time of day to all of you, my friends, here on the Internet Chess Club. This is Grandmaster Yermolinsky. Glad to have you back. Today we're gonna recap the second stage of new Grand Chess Tour in 2017 that finished today in Leuven, Belgium. And well, let me start, of course, with the final standings. Alright, no surprises there. Well, I had a feeling as the rapid part was played over 3 days, Wednesday, Thursday and Friday, and Wesley So came out with 7 points. He played very good. Obviously his win over Carlsen was essentially important, but no, he played extremely well. But I had a feeling that that margin of 1.5 points that Wesley had over Magnus in the rapid, even if it was doubled and became 3 points, I did not think it would stand, really, over 18 games of Blitz. And the very first day of the Blitz, which was yesterday, confirmed that Magnus had a just overwhelming run, absolutely overwhelming. As a matter of fact, today I just want to show you games Magnus played yesterday, because today's session of 9 more games was rather an afterthought. Even if So and Carlsen were tied after Saturday Blitz, I mean, it's already making up 3 points, and no, in the end, as you can see, Magnus doubled it. So he scored 6 points more than Wesley So in the Blitz. So it was more than enough for him to win the tournament with quite a significant margin of 3 points in combined score. Now, so that pocketed him $37,500 and also gave him 13 Grand Chess Tour points. Adding that to 12, which he won in Paris. So that was already, what, a week ago? Yeah. No, Magnus currently stands, let me switch the screen, at 25 points. Now, you probably wonder why it was 12 in Paris and became 13 in Leuven. It's because Magnus did not win it outright in Paris. He actually tied in combined score with Maxim Vachier-Lagrave and had to play this playoff, and he won it. But shared first place, even if you win the playoff, only gives you 12. But now, with 13 more, he stands at 25. Alright, so let's analyze what we have here in front of our eyes. So I added 8 points to Vachier-Lagrave's score, and now he's at 18. Wesley added 10, he's at 14. Alright, others, first of all, we pay attention to names with an asterisk next to them. Those guys are not participants of the tour, they're just wildcards. So forget about Grishuk, Mamedyanov, Topalov and Bakro. And the same way, we don't care for, back to the screen, about Giri, Kramnik, Ivanchuk and Jabava. So those guys, well, they may get invited in some of the remaining tournaments. Kramnik for sure will be in London Classic. I mean, I think that's almost a given. But as far as others, they may be their one and only appearance. And at any rate, they're not eligible to win money in Grand Chess Tour. I actually took a moment of my time to read the regulations of Grand Chess Tour this year. And unless I misunderstood something, it seems to me that there are only 2 overall prizes in this race. First place, $100,000, and second place, $50,000. Well, I believe last year there were 3 of them. I even thought that 3 was not enough. I don't know, and shorten it to 2, is that the money-saving operation? But to me it defeats the entire purpose of having a tour. I mean, first 2 places, well, this being a combined thing of 2 classical tournaments and 2 rapid/blitz events, no, certainly gives a lot of advantage to, no, better, faster time control players. No, well, that's Magnus Carlsen, right? Well, we're having a little bit of a tighter race there in regular classical chess ratings, where Magnus dropped a lot of points and currently only ahead by 12 over Kramnik, and Wesley is there. So maybe it reflects on something, maybe not, it remains to be seen. But at least it makes this whole thing look competitive. But if you combine it with Rapid and Blitz, the way it's done, then you look at the rating lists over there, and Magnus is just head and shoulders ahead of everybody else. The close margin, that after the Paris Blitz that was between him and Vasheva Graf, only 9 points. No, it now increased to probably about 50 points. I don't know, I haven't checked, but those Rapid and Blitz ratings, obviously, they have more volatility. They change faster. But one thing remains constant. That's Magnus Carlsen's significant lead in this department. Now, therefore, I pretty much announced this whole thing, Grand Chess Tour 2017. It's over. And Magnus, in my opinion, barring, I don't know, some kind of a calamity, catastrophe, I don't know what it is, will win the Grand Chess Tour. And there is a fair chance that he can actually win it with an event to spare. I can easily imagine him, putting everything together and winning the next stage, which is going to be a Sinkfield Cup. That's classical time control tournament. Well, outright with 13 more points and 38. And I gotta tell you, I'm not sure, that anybody can reach that score of 38. Well, that would take a lot of effort. I mean, obviously, looking at this situation, Vasheva Graf, 18 points. No, he's not a bad player, but Maxim's standing in Rapid and chess is significantly higher than in classical. In classical, he's just one of the guys. He may have a good tournament, and no, obviously it's possible, but for him to finish second twice in, for example, in both St. Louis and London, no, that would be no huge accomplishment. I mean, to score 20 points from 2 classical tournaments. Having horrible day in playing Bullet, does Bullet even matter? It does not matter to me. I don't know. I guess there are things you enjoy and they matter to you, because no, if you're chess players, we kind of transcend our competitive streak to all whatever other things we do, and no, for you it's Bullet. Well, it matters to you. Does it matter really in a larger scheme of things? Probably it doesn't. But no. Carlsen performance, Blitz part of caliber of Herzog, Novi, 70, Fischer scored 14.5. Yeah, Fischer scored 19 out of 22. Field arguably was, yeah, it was uneven, of course. Yeah, no, Fischer was a great Blitz player. Probably best of his time. Well, so is Magnus. I don't know. It's hard to tell if the gap is larger. I mean, now also it's interesting. Let's just go back not that far, 1970, but say late 1990s, mid 1990s, when Intel Grand Prix was organized by Kasparov and Kramnik, Anand, Ivanchuk, all others played over there. It's interesting that Kasparov, Kramnik, and Anand were always at the top. They would always make the Final Four, I think, every time they played. So I think they were ahead of other people by even larger margin. Ivanchuk, obviously, factor of unpredictability. You'd never know which Ivanchuk would show up. Back then, at least, he had the ability, if everything went his way, that he could compete. Right now, many years later, 20 years later, he can't. Well, he oscillates between, being average, I guess, and bad, in this kind of company, which is only reasonable. So you find Carlsen's performance somewhat depressing. Downer feeling of today's performance. He knew he had it in the bag. How bad was his result today? He scored 7 points. It was half point less than he scored yesterday, but still 14.5 out of 18. I was joking, maybe, but maybe not. I was talking to somebody at Friday night after they finished the Rapid, and so I was asked, what do you think is going to happen? And I said, in absence of real good Blitz players, or rather shortage of them in this particular tournament, Magnus is going to score 16 out of 18. That was my prediction. No, it didn't come true. He came a point and a half short of that. But this is really how I saw it. What I mean by shortage of good Blitz players, it's simply the absence of Mamedyanov, Grishuk, and Karyakin. Well, it was... they're just tougher guys, the better Blitz players. And Magnus... probably didn't feel extremely confident playing against them because he knows how good they are in Blitz. And maybe it caused them to have a so-so performance in the Blitz part in Paris. But here he looked at the field and it's like, Giri, scores 10 points in the Blitz. Giri was dead last in Norway Blitz, the tournament I played before the main event. Well, obviously it wasn't really an indication of Giri's Blitz skills. They're better than that, better than last place. I don't know, the feeling maybe, depressing because Magnus didn't score more points, or depressing because it's really a no contest. To me, it's more of the latter. I always like tournaments to be contested and with more people having chances and upset surprises and all that. When I see somebody basically plowing over the field the way Carlsen did in Leuven, all due respect to Magnus, he played fantastic, and I will start showing games now. But nonetheless, from a competitive part, that was a bit of a downer. Kasparov said that Carlsen was simply playing chess while all others were playing Blitz. The general quality of play of Magnus, a drop-off from classical to rapid is almost imperceptible. It almost seems to me that he plays better when he has 25 minutes on his clock rather than 2 hours. And the reasons for that, if I'm only guessing, of course, is A, he knows he's going to have more than one game, so he doesn't spend a lot of time preparing for the game. Preparing is an exciting part for opening specialists, because that's what they do, right? Carlsen just doesn't care for that. So for him, I guess the most depressing part is to sit there preparing yet for another game with Nakamura or Karyakin or whoever, you know, and knowing that it's going to be, whatever, the same thing that they already played before. So that probably makes him tired and puts him in a worse mood. When Magnus just plays chess, you know, he just plays chess. A higher level of chess no one else can play, so Wipeout. No, okay, Jabala. Well, I'll be honest with you. Well, Badur, I don't really like the kind of attitude he had when he came for this tournament. I mean, to me, it's... I mean, there's really no reason why Jabava should be invited to play in this event. I know maybe it's not a big deal, you know, and it's a one-shot deal, you know, but, I mean... No, everybody has to make adjustments when they play chess. You simply cannot play the same way in every situation, all the same, you know, against anybody, and regardless of a tournament or match situation or whatnot. I mean, it's part of being an intelligent chess player. So you change things, you know, you adjust your style, you know, like Nakamura does it all the time. I mean, Jabava just came out, you know, and then, like what? You know, we will forgive him for his horrible, you know, overall score because his games were exciting. They were about as exciting if some 1,800 players showed up for this tournament. Well, I mean, to say that Jabava doesn't play for draws, I mean, I almost wish he did, you know, at least he would put up more resistance. I mean, his play was ridiculous in this tournament. I think he had to take it, I don't know if it's more seriously is the right term, but at least, you know, well, realize that this is a special event. And he ended up not only embarrassing himself, I think embarrassing the entire tournament. I totally agree with Nakamura, who was privately just expressing his displeasure with Jabava's invitation to this tournament. I mean, I understand invite Topalov and Ivanchuk. Well, maybe they're not the players they once were, and maybe in case of Topalov they were never really that good and rapid and Blitz. But I mean, those are big names, just out of respect, you know, invite these guys. Well, but I mean, there was another big talk, you know, but it was not initiated by Nakamura. What about the Chinese players? They're totally ignored. Whoever runs this show, and I assume it's Garry Kasparov and friends, they pretend that the entire country of China does not exist, in a chess sense. I mean, I'm shocked, honestly. The Chinese, they have young players, I think 4 of them in top 50 in the world or something, or top 40. Well, Ding Liren, obviously, Yu Yanyi, and Wei Yi, and Li Chao, he's also not not so old. And they're actually pretty good rapid players, because they in China they play a lot of rapid tournaments. Blitz as well, I assume. Well, they're totally ignored. Where is Ding Liren? Well, I don't know. I mean, he's not my... I don't have his Skype. I don't know where he is. I assume in China. No, well, that's the thing. No, yeah, you can always say, well, they have their own schedule. Like, for example, next month, at the end of July, when... Oh, this month, what am I talking about? At the end of this month, when events in St. Louis will start. First, classical tournament, Singfield Cup, and then St. Louis Rapid and Blitz. Same thing as here. Well, the Chinese, they already have things scheduled, so they will play the traditional match with Russia, and then Ding Liren will play a match against player, well, to be named later. Okay, but I guess, well, if they talk to them in advance, maybe, I don't know, 6 months ago, maybe things would have been different. Well, it's almost like, you know, I heard it already somewhere. Oh, well, they scheduled to play elsewhere. No, well, if you didn't invite them in beforehand, you know, like all others got their invitations. No, well, now it just sounds like an empty excuse. Alleged old Russian rule is true. You should make a draw if you lose 1 or 2 games, just stop the bleeding. First of all, I don't know why it was a Russian rule. Okay, and in what way it was a Russian rule? I mean, it basically goes to, originates from Petrosian. Petrosian famously said that when you win a game or lose the game, any other result but a draw is kind of upsets your equilibrium, and you either too depressed or too excited, but anyway, you're not in the right mood. Right mood, according to Petrosian, was no, after making a draw. So it's a good idea for you to make a draw too, you know, to kind of get back in your normal playing shape. Of course, it was a joke. Petrosian didn't mind winning a few games in a row, but I don't think. I mean, I don't know. I don't know where it comes from. That Kasparov, one example, representative of this Russian or whatever Soviet school of chess, he didn't seem like this kind of guy. Yeah, he would lose a game every once in a while and usually win the very next one. Well, why it's 1 o'clock in the morning in Russia? No, well, that's because, well, I live in the United States, and I guess, no, well, the Internet Chess Club is an American business. I know it's international, of course, these days, but nonetheless, it's registered in the state of Pennsylvania and the city of Pittsburgh. Official server time is Eastern time, well, read New York, so it's well, 6:20 in the evening on ICC. Sorry about that. I wish we could pick up more audience from Russia or from Asia, India, you know, China, wherever. But no, I actually don't mind working nights. You know, I've done live work from tournaments in China and some other places. So I'm okay with that, but it's not entirely up to me when to schedule my shows. So you guys, you know, from other parts of the world, you should lobby, no, talk to administrators here on the Internet Chess Club. Maybe you can convince them that to have an additional time slot. Danzhou tournament is coming up. Yeah, there is Ding, Yu, and Wei. Yeah, that's right. Forgot about the Danzhou tournament. Yeah, I visited. Well, I played in Hainan International Open Tournament in December. This is where Chinese Chess Association have their official training base. So that's where they run some of the tournaments, not necessarily all of them. It's on an island of Hainan. It's actually off the Vietnamese coast and South China Sea. Tropical place, you know, pretty nice. Anyway, so that tournament, it's not going to be a kind of tournament they used to have in the past, like with Carlsen and some others, well, top players. There are going to be some players from India, Russia, and possibly some other places, but it's not going to be an elite tournament. Yeah. Am I impressed with Anish Giri? Yes, I am. I think all in all, you know, Anish had a very solid performance. And Anish is not really focusing on Rapid and Blitz because he's not a regular participant of this year's tour. He barely missed the cut. He got edged by Yan Nepomniachtchi because, for invitational purposes, Grand Chess Tour uses their own rating system called the Universal Rating, that's where they combine classical with Rapid and Blitz, and by using that sophisticated formula, Nepomniachtchi was, I believe, 2 points higher than Giri. So he was the last man to make the cut. Speaking of Nepomniachtchi, I'm personally shocked, you know, with his less than mediocre performance. You know, great talent, obviously, and ability to see things on the board so quickly. And look at this hole, only 50% evenly in both Rapid and Blitz. That's like ridiculously low. And he only came away with 4 points, and he certainly needed more than 4 points to have any kind of chance to finish. No, there is only one place left for them, second place, right in the Grand Chess Tour, altogether, because Carlsen runs away with this whole thing. But 4 points is so low. I don't know now. There is still a theoretical chance, obviously, but Jan really hurt his chances by playing so poorly in this tournament. He only has one excuse. Just one day before the start of the Leuven tournament, he finished playing for the Russian team in Khanty-Mansiysk in World Team Championship. Had to travel and cross 5 time zones and whatnot, and visibly ran out of gas as the tournament was progressing. No, it's easy to say, you know, like, well, schedule your tournaments better, but I don't think anybody should blame Nepomniachtchi for, no, accepting this job, you know, playing for his own country. Particularly as it turned out, well, with Peter Svidor being totally off form and not winning a single game, Nepomniachtchi, who was on board too, ended up playing quite a few games on board 1 and had a fantastic result, together with the rest of the Russian team. Of course, they lost the critical match to China, so the Chinese team kept the title of world champions, but I think all in all that was the best performance of the Russian teams in recent memory, I don't know, in the past, in all these years, I think, since Kasparov retired. Now, but anyway, we're not talking about Russian chess or World Team Championship, so let's go to the games. Alright, so Magnus starts as Blitz. 2-day event with every player playing each other twice, and it's over 2 days. It's not really a huge workload, and all in all, the organizers, they kind of spaced this 27 games widely, so no, 3 games of Rapid per day. No, that's nothing, right? But then 9 games of Blitz, another 9 games of Blitz. The problem is that fatigue in chess, it's cumulative, right? So you're not really resting that much between those playing days. So, well, maybe it helps, but I'm not sure. Maybe in Nepomniachtchi's case it would be better, you know, if they played this whole thing in over 2 days. I know that would be ridiculous for older players, but I think, you know, he was basically running on fumes. And all in all, his play was, you know, looked little better in the Rapid, although he scored, you know, same points. Yeah, true. Carlsen was late for his game with Gary because he took my phone call. Wow. Hung up because he late for the game. Yeah, and then of course he played the Stonewall setup and lost that game. The only loss. Anyway, but okay, that was actually later in the tournament. Okay, let's look how Magnus rode over the entire field, you know, on Saturday. So I have all the 7 wins of Magnus Carlsen from Saturday. To me, today's session was rather an afterthought. While players tried to solve their local issues, and there was some intrigue going on as far as fighting for second place, but right now I'm focused on Magnus. So this is how he started. So first game, he plays against Anand. Well, actually Anand impressed me in the first day of Blitz. He played extremely well. I think he didn't score enough points he deserved. Well, Vish's play was kind of fresh and he had ideas and he just looked good. I think he faded away on the second day of the Blitz. But from Vish's point of view, he's just, hanging in there, you know, like playing these tournaments and, enjoying himself. But he didn't enjoy himself much in this situation, because from a position with clear extra pawn, he blundered first and he got outplayed, and then he was fighting real hard to save a half point in this situation as white. And it came to this position, white's last move was knight c4, trying to trade down. Obviously, the situation is alarming for white, because his king is cut off. It's a huge disadvantage in many endgames, particularly sharp ones when both players have passed pawns running up and down the board. Because in the end, they're always mating threats. So, Carlsen's turn. And he played this move, rook a2, which is totally by the book. You put your rook behind that passed pawn, and that's where the rook belongs, and keep the opponent's king cut off. One problem with this move, of course, that it loses time. A time that, you were telling the truth, don't try to wiggle out of this, we got it. You and Magnus are, buddy, so you talk all the time. There's nothing wrong with that, right? Hey. So, no backing out of that. Alright, I think, and it's interesting, Magnus, his strength in Rapid and in Blitz is mainly in his natural play. So he always looks at the most important main moves. His intuition, his understanding of the game is so great that he simply doesn't have to be distracted on looking at some random stuff. Almost like he always knows where the game flows. So in this situation, capture, because you get a tempo on g3. Now, making threats obviously is essential. Now, clearly the g-pawn is threatening to queen. Now already, if black gets to give this check, and then g2, and that's it. So white is late with his pawns. So he has to set up some kind of a defense using his rook, I assume. Well, but how? The rook cannot get around and get behind the g-pawn. There's just simply no time for that. So I guess king f1. Now, I can understand, this position doesn't look winning for black. Well, doesn't look clearly winning for black. Because white rook has the ability to push the king away. So without the h-pawn, there is no progress to be made. And that could make anybody nervous, because it takes quite a bit of time for black to get the h-pawn going and support the g-pawn and make threats against the white king. So white seemingly is in time to do something, but strangely enough, the calculation doesn't prove that. So the king comes here now, checks forced over there. No, actually another check is probably not good, because it only helps black to play g2. So white should forget about this and push one of the pawns forward, right? Okay, suppose this one. I honestly don't see much difference between these two pawns as far as which one goes first. Okay, this and that. No, you have to respect that. The rook goes behind the pawn. Now it's time for the other one, right? Yeah, maybe this. So it looks like... Actually looks like white's best defensive idea. Because if black is forced to put his rook in a passive position, rook a7, he's not gonna win the game. No. White can guard the back rank, and the rook can never come out, and without the help of the rook, obviously, the black pawns cannot queen. So So maybe Magnus very quickly, because, no, well, it's obviously Blitz game and there isn't a whole lot of time. Even if the line looks kind of forced, probably thought, that's not good, I can't win this. No, well, there is this check. The king cannot come to g2 because of pawn mate, and after this g2, and black actually does win the game. Because, no, clearly, the one that queens first is gonna win the game, right? Because you get to do, no, your check first, and that's gonna be checkmate already. Yeah, there was a forced win. I have a feeling that Magnus simply, it takes him a little bit of time to get into the tournament, and it both, you know, classical and rapid blitz, whatever. He's just not that fast a starter, you know, but once he gets going, then he really gets going. Rough time in endgames. No, because endgames, they come after the opening and right after middle game. Vishy simply doesn't have enough in the tank anymore. Well, think about, no, well, he has 25 years of chess career and already more behind him, more like 27 on a very high level. I think he played Karpov in a candidates match in the year 1991. Okay, make it 26. I mean, it wear and tear, you know, it's not only the age, it's the mileage too. I mean, it's just hard for Vishy, as the gallant fighter he is, you know, to go through long games like this. And he does get a little bit disorientated, you know, when things change rapidly. It's also no function of old age, you know, your brain is not that flexible anymore. Oh yeah, you will see in this game was prime example. So anyway, the rook went to a2. Now he does it right. Now this is a good check. Now what white absolutely needs to do, white needs to go after the h pawn, because he can deal with one pawn, with the g pawn. But if the pawns get, no, connected, I mean they are connected, but they kind of separated. If they really get connected, then it's just impossible. So white cannot organize any counterplay. So this check was good. And no, this check was not good actually. Well, the idea was good, but the interpretation wasn't right. He first had to do this, because, and only after that he would do this check. That's when it needs to be done. Important thing is that you stop the mating threat, and now after this you go after the h pawn. Now this should save the day. Now given time, or given a moment, you know, just to take a couple of deep breaths, you know, for sure Anand is more than good enough to find it. I mean, just going after this pawn. Now black cannot eliminate both white pawns, and it can only be done with a rook that should allow the white king to come out and support the d pawn. Well, he actually did it wrong, because this check was unfortunate. It gave this critical tempo again. And after rook h5, there was g3 again. You know, I had endgames like this. Well, they're not really, how to put it, they cannot be played in an academic way, you know, like Rubinstein rook endgames, but there is time for action sometimes. And no, here that one pawn goes forward and makes this threat of rook check followed by g2, and the white rook is out of position to get behind it. So therefore the only move would be king f1, and now this. So the white's attention is diverted from the h7 pawn. He must do this, king g4, and next is h5. And we already know the drill. Now that's gonna come much faster, and I think there's a forced win here. There, h5. Okay, try to push the other pawn. I'm not even sure black necessarily needs to take the pawn on a5. It may win the game as well, but with the active position of the white rook, maybe it's not the best way to proceed. First you gotta look at the most direct methods. No, well, h3 is coming. So he has to start giving checks. Funny, right? You play this move, he's gonna go h3. You take and he's gonna play this. That's winning again. The white rook is in a horrible position. Check. Takes. Only move rook h5. Now this. Notice there isn't any checking distance left between the white rook and the black king. This and that. Just cannot do anything on rook g5. No, well, I assume rook takes d5 will get the job done. Eventually. Yeah, so twice Magnus kinda missed this, but it's just the way he starts. You know, I'm sure if this game was played in round 5 instead of round 1, I mean, I almost guarantee that Magnus would win it without no additional help from Anand. Oh, king f3 was the wrong move, and now the finish. The finish was really bad. Okay, well, now white for sure has a draw, right? He eliminated the h-pawn, and now the white king has to step in front of the g-pawn. So how to make a draw in such positions? Tell me. What's the most reliable procedure, standard procedure in situations like this? What does white need to do with his king? What do you want to do with the white king here? White king in front of the pawn. No, we cannot get to g1 anymore. That would be nice, but defensive role for the white king is finished. Black made sure that there is no use for the white king. Well, the g0, well, running out of room over there. No, guys, in rook end games, most of the time, when you cannot take a defensive position in front of the opponent's pawn, or it somehow doesn't work because of mating threats, and you try to join your king with your passed pawn. Eventually you'll be forced to give up your rook for the opponent's passed pawn, but then you do the same, you return to favor to your opponent. You gotta get the king off the back rank, you know, and join with the d-pawn. From that point of view, I'm completely okay with this move. I am reluctant to play rook f5 because you need longer checking distance. These moves, you know, they often do not work well. Now you cannot check that king off. It's becoming much more difficult. You need checking distance. So do not protect that pawn, and Anand knew that. So he played d5. Great move. Oh, Magnus takes. Alright, you have to save your d-pawn. And poor Vishy just blundered it away. He thought he was getting his pawn to the 7th. But he didn't. Came this check and he lost the pawn. He lost the pawn on d6 while black already has the winning position with his king in front of the pawn. And the rest is just, what is it, Lucina building the bridge and all that. No, the rook needed a little bit of support with this move. Yeah. King g1. Okay. We go forward. That's all we need. We go forward. Now, clearly, like, white has time to spare to give up his rook for the g-pawn and easily make a draw. With the king and a d-pawn. I don't think that Vishy needed any kind of tutorial on how to bring the king to e4 and all that. I think he was just blundered, and when he played this move, he simply blundered that check. No, that's what happens, and Kramnik mentioned it, and many others. No, that's how it is. When fatigue plays a large role, and as you get a little older, you have those, I don't know, senior moments. Not really for a world champion and one of the greatest players of modern chess history to blunder a pawn like this. Oh well. Yeah. So guess what happens, when people give early Christmas presents to Magnus Carlsen. Christmas comes in late June. Magnus takes it. And he's not gonna give it back. No. Next example. Okay, that's the game against the guy, who got the better of him in the Blitz tournament in Paris. That's Maxim Vashkeva-Graf. Oh, happened to me. Oh boy, I can sit there. Maybe I should start my new Russian Schoolboy series, titled, Senior Moments in Chess. Well, I mean, yeah, you can kind of strut around, you can flex, I'm good, I'm feeling as good as I ever did, but the reality is, if you take a long, hard look in the mirror, you know that your best days are over. Do you think Anand thinks he can challenge Carlsen again? Well, I mean, what else to do in life? Put it this way. Well, there is a Topalov way, but maybe I think Topalov actually had to work harder, maybe the hardest, of them all. And the burnout that Topalov suffered, I think was greater than Vishy's. Vishy's condition is not a burnout. It's just kind of like maybe slow erosion of the skills, but I mean, he's still comfortable. It doesn't look like he's killing himself. He enjoys chess, and why not, and if he plays, well, yeah, well, I was the first person who gave Vishy zero chance to win the candidates tournament in Khanty-Mansiysk in 2014. I honestly thought that he was done. After how poorly he played his last 2 years of world championship, and he didn't win a single tournament, and it was averaging like 1 win in 2 tournaments. That was before the first Carlsen match. Then the match in Chennai when Vishy looked outright bad in that match. But, no, I'm glad he proved me wrong. That's why sometimes I tell categorically, like, oh, this guy is finished over, stick a fork in him. Maybe I secretly want him to respond and say, I'll show this big mouth Yerma what I can do. Okay, good. That's what I meant all along. Honestly, my friend, well, I left Northeast Ohio, Cleveland, well, so many years ago in 1999, that I didn't have I haven't been back practically, maybe visited once or twice since then. Where I am now, there are no mushrooms, it's prairie land, upper Midwest, South Dakota. So, well, I have to go to the mountains. My wife, she's really big on that, so she loves mushrooms and she knows them all. I can just walk with her, but no. Maybe if she points out and says, okay, get that, then I can bend over, and pick that mushroom. But Without her help, I'm afraid, no. Of course Anand can play. Now, to this game, Vasheva Graf. Now, it's sort of a principle thing, because Magnus, no, he's a friendly guy, you know, like, no, absolute majority of the time, but he doesn't like to be upstage. And Vasheva Graf clearly upstaged him in Paris in a Blitz part. Now, took tremendous effort from Magnus, and no, last round win and all that, you know, and then the tie break, but I mean, clearly, Magnus viewed it as challenge from Maxim. I don't know if everyone's beating Caruana. Well, Caruana had a terrible showing at in the rapid part in Paris, but Blitz, he kind of asserted himself, and no, he did okay in the Blitz. Obviously, his point haul, only 4 points from that first stage, you know, put him in a difficult situation as far as competing in Grand Chess Tour, but we'll return to this. So anyway, that's a tough endgame, you know, to play when you're low on time, because really, in this situation, there are hardly any typical patterns you can lean on. Anything that would point you into the right direction. It's all calculation. So first thing, Maxim calculates that if he goes forward, there, and king b5, right? No, this pawn is good enough to draw the black knight away. Now white is trying to attack and win some pawns. No, problem is that black quickly captures this h and g, right? And then the f pawn clearly is gonna queen. White is simply unable to make another passer on the queen side. Do I think playing against computer without handicap can improve your chess? I thought so, and I was wrong. I spent a lot of time. It's not like I was even playing against computer. I was I knew it was a losing game, obviously. I played mainly 5-minute chess, and considering that I'm not that handy with the mouse, I mean, I was losing, obviously, absolute majority of games. But I thought it would help me to, I don't know, just to get maybe sharper, a little quicker, you know. No, it didn't. It didn't help. I fell into this thing, you know, that happens to everybody. I started adjusting my game to my opponent, to the computer. No, it's a good thing when you face human opponents, because every and each of them you should approach differently. But with computer, it just affected my game, and this became at very best just a waste of my time. Probably it was also detrimental. Some people believe that the sheer amount of losses that you suffer, be it rapid, blitz, computer, whatnot, they accumulate, and eventually you lose your confidence, and they say you never remember your wins. It's not the number of games you win, it's the number of games you lose. In all sorts of chess, all shapes and forms. And that is not helping you. So anyway, it may, on the other hand, there is Nakamura. Well, I know Nakamura didn't lose a whole lot of games. No, out of his 10 million Blitz games or whatever he played. But it seems to be helping him. Yeah, so this line he had to abandon. So he goes h4. So he had this idea that he can move h and g pawns together to force the trade of the most dangerous pawn. That's the most dangerous pawn, right? f7 pawn. It's about as good as you can do, you know, being low on the clock. Well, this incredibly difficult move h3, it's totally counterintuitive. You're not doing anything, you're like wasting your time. In fact, this move would lead to a draw. Well, funny thing is that Black continues with that, right? So he can only take the pawn with the king. The knight must guard the runaway h pawn. Well, the difference is remarkable. White is actually headed not after the useless c7 pawn, because he will be late in his counterplay. He's actually headed to the f7 pawn. Not only with the idea of removing it and then making a run to the queen side, which is also possible, it might work. But he can actually tie down the black king to the knight. Like, this position is absolutely not trivial if you think about it, because white is not going to play h8. He doesn't have to play h8. If anything, he will never play h8, because then the black king will be closer to the queen side. Instead, white will just stand there, because the black king is tied down to the knight. And eventually white's plan is to not just advance, right? Maybe even to play b5. And in this situation, like, he can do this, and if king h6, he can do that. Once again, black simply doesn't have moves, right? He can't even force Zugzwang, because it's his turn. Either he lets the white king come back to g7, or he can give check, but what's the use of check? You must run back to g6. If anything, you know, it looks a little alarming, because what if now with the advanced b-pawn, what if the white king makes it to a7? Okay, it's probably not gonna work, but the point is, you know, that you need a little bit of time, you know, a little bit of reflection to come up with this idea. It looks paradoxical, this movement of the king, right? But you have to go around obstacles. Knight on g6 and pawn on f7. This is where this Blitz thing comes short. About the time control, you know, they didn't use increment. They used what they call Bronstein clock, or known as a form of delay. So the difference is that you don't gain time, right? You can play your moves faster, and your time remains the same at best, as long as you keep it, no, below the allocated seconds. In the Blitz, I believe it was 3 seconds. Was it 3 or 2? Does anybody remember? Caruana living in Canada? No. Well, he is not Canadian. He was born in the United States. He was born in Florida, I believe. Grew up in New York, played a lot in Marshall Chess Club. His family moved to Europe, and when Fabiana was 13, maybe, or something. And now he's back. 3-second delay, yeah. Well, it's just not enough. No, it's sort of enough to not to hurry and not to knock pieces down and turn this whole thing into a disaster. It's enough not to be a Walter Brown in time trouble, which honestly, you know, some people found entertaining. You know, I would just turn around and walk to the other end of the tournament hall. I felt bad for Walter, and even if he would often come away as the beneficiary of time trouble, well, because his opponents, you know, will make mistakes too. But nonetheless, I just found it painful to watch. It also applies to some other time trouble addicts. But 3 seconds helps, you know, at least you can, kind of execute a physical move with grace and confidence. You know, so that's good. But as far as thinking, no, you can't. I don't like delay. I prefer the increment, because the increment it actually allows some kind of, I mean, it's unpredictable, right? One guy can be sitting there with barely, I don't know, a couple of seconds on his clock. The other guy can have 2 or 3 minutes. But suddenly, he has a problem, right? Well, what to do? So he thinks and then starts some kind of forcing line, which the opponent already saw. So the guy with just mere seconds plays a few moves quicker. And before you know it, he's got 1.5 minutes, and the other guy now plays his move and with 5 seconds to spare. And this situation can repeat itself many times. And I think it's very exciting. And also, when you accumulate time, like in this situation, for example, I mean, it's totally critical. So you use it until your last second if you have the nerve to do this. And you look to the end. But with delay, it's like you think, oh man, I cannot let it run, to 10 seconds because then I'll be restricted to this 3 seconds per move, whatever. And then I'm basically dead. So anyway, let's see what happened. H4 now. This probably is not enough. Magnus plays it well. And he plays the important move C6. You're gonna enjoy this endgame. So he cuts off the king. Look, he's not in a hurry yet to move his king toward the pawns. He wants to make sure the white king is going nowhere. B4. It's okay. I also like this. That is absolutely wrong to play this move because it helps white to gain the c5 square with this move. You can misplay it, you can even lose it with black. But Magnus got things under control, so he keeps the pawns like this. And now Maxim has to play that because he knows if black has the f pattern then the game is over. So he executes his plan. And now knight takes. Nobody actually thought of this. But here is the problem, right? White pushes forward. Well, the general rule in such endgames, if there are any rules for strange positions such as this one, is that the king actually is a stronger piece than a knight in the endgame. Obviously, you cannot get your king involved in any trades. Delay. No, I already expressed my opinion. I have nothing else to add. I absolutely dislike delay. I think to me it's like increment or nothing. Delay. To me, delay was invented simply to allow our esteemed arbiters such as Carol Jarecki to sit at their desk and never even get off the chair, to look at the games. The world open. So you got delay, like no claims, the insufficient winning chances and all that, you play the games out and we don't have to watch or whatever. I think that was the real purpose of that. Alright, so in this situation, if you do this, then the king of course gets around. The king is stronger than the knight. Try to protect his pawn on a7 with your knight. The knight's awkward. The knight is poorly positioned here. Anyone's game. Magnus had the presence of mind to play this move. What he actually thinks of now is not to fight with an inferior piece, a knight, against the white king. He wants the king fight over there. Why would that be in black's advantage? Because king fights are always about opposition. And it's always about having those spare moves to force the opponent out of position. And the spare moves are going to be provided by the knight. So, you see, Magnus has the ability, in these crazy situations, we've been very low on time. He almost always sends the game to the right direction. That's what makes him an incredible endgame player. Yeah, well, in the previous example with Anand, he missed a couple of forced wins, whatever. But the direction was correct. He just never gets lost in such situations. That's how quickly he thinks. So b5. No, that's that's an example of a it's not a tactical mistake, it's not, but it's just miscalculation, right? Well, the thing is, when you look at this, it just doesn't look right. As the white king is running. Amazingly, now black stops this pawn, and now he has this. But it's only calculation, right? c4 is not good. When the black knight takes the pawn, it protects b6. So white is kind of absolutely stuck here. He cannot do anything. He will walk with the king around to hit the knight, and the knight will go to a5. And now you have to walk around again. No, knight is not the fastest piece on the chessboard, but no, well, it's still faster than the king. All the same, if you eliminate the b6 pawn, black will not take on c3 immediately. Black has this strong move. Maybe Magnus even saw this far. He calculates also very quickly. But then he thought, I take, he takes, and I don't win. c4, he catches up. My knight is in the way. So, and he just didn't think that he can push the pawn first. Now white has no useful moves, so this is not super useful. And then in the end, you know, like, only black wins. Ah, you can play c3, takes c2. Only black wins. That would be an amazing win in the endgame. I mean, Magnus comes real close to creating endgame masterpieces, even in Blitz. Now, think about it. Well, in Rapid, right? When he had more time, particularly if it was a 10-second increment. No, he's very hard to deal with. So he played this check. Okay, it's a different kind of strategy over there. No, he has to return with the knight. And now we have this position. I don't know exactly how much time Maxim Vachiv-Agraf had on his clock, but, well, the rest of the game he truly disappointed me. He's, Magnus's age, right? I mean, obviously, the situation was changing rapidly, and, but I mean, he's young, you know, he also thinks very fast. He had to be able to figure out how to play this position. The real danger to his position is the two dangers. Danger one, you play this move and you blunder into check. Alright, that's understandable. Danger two, that the pawns get blocked. And then the opponent can use opposition because he has endless supply of those spare moves. What you should do in this situation, you should not play c4. I really dislike this move c4. c4 has the seeds of defeat in it, even if it's not a losing move. Because it puts black in a situation where he can grab c5, and then he can win the opposition again, and he can get around and just push the white king off the pawns and win them all. Which is absolutely impossible to do if white plays this. Well, you play that. Thinking of this pawns, no, alright, so in this situation we can see, of course, that white is simply going to capture both pawns and can use this c-pawn as decoy. So king comes back, we go here, we take, there, and we just push the c-pawn forward. But interestingly enough, white doesn't even need the c-pawn to save the game. I had a similar endgame against Nigel Short once. Suppose there is no c-pawn. Okay. I'll make a blunder here. I'll forget to take the a-pawn. You make all this progress, the usual progress. You bring my king over there, force my king all the way to b1, a1. And now what? What are you gonna do? Stalemate me? In order to win the game, you have to at some moment move your knight and try to come to c2 with checkmate. You'll not have this kind of time. White is only one step away from queen. All the same, it's impossible for black to make this track and bring the knight to b8. It's also unrealistic. So the game was actually a pretty simple draw if white just doesn't put his pawn on c4. I think, you know, this is not good. Regardless. Well, to me, Magnus Carlsen's advantage over other players in the endgame is in the great familiarity with typical patterns of endgame play. Yeah, he can miscalculate, he can, like, we already saw it a couple of times. But, I mean, I absolutely don't see him playing c4 in such position with white. He's just familiar, he kind of looks ahead and he can foresee those typical positions. He has a very large database of typical endgame positions readily available in his head. And that makes him simply the better endgame player. That's what I'm thinking. Of course he played a5. Now you can see it, right? Well, truth to tell, it was still possible to make a draw here. But I mean, what are you hoping for while playing this move? You're not going to be able to stand your ground. Knight h8 and then it's gone. Okay, he made a run here, but that comes obviously short. So in the end, takes here, there, queen, both players queen, queen's traded, king takes c4, over. I mean, honestly, in this situation, well, he played this move, right? After king c5, king c3. No, he had to play this. Because king c3 is so hopeless. Strangely enough, white king goes to g6. Yeah, we'll get to that. Maybe d6 pawn. No, that's today's game. So anyway, still white could make a draw. Now calculations show that this is quick enough. Knight h8 is actually forced, right? a3 takes, a2 here. Oh, the difference is that there is nothing left on the queen side. Yeah, I kind of thought after this game, I don't know, it's easy to say it now, obviously, when we all know the results. I kind of, after this game, I thought that MVL was not as in good a shape as he was in Paris. Clearly, Magnus was much... I don't know, just... I'm searching for a word. Throughout this whole endgame, you know, he had his hands on the position, and I think Vasheva Graf was kind of flailing. And particularly this last moment when he didn't attack with the king. That usually in Maxim's play, attack comes first, and that he meekly goes king c3. Well, that was just seriously disappointing. No, Nakamura promoted to a knight. He tried to make an innocent joke, you know, or whatever, and no, paid for it. I mean, but you gotta give Hikaru credit, you know. So, well, he gets upset after a game like this. Who wouldn't? And he fumes maybe for a few minutes, and then he sits down and plays his next game very well. You know what he did after losing that game, right? That game to Mamedyanov. Then he beat Carlsen and Karyakin. He saved his Grand Chess Tour. Speaking of. 8 points for Nakamura. He surpassed 2 people in last 2 rounds. He could have easily tanked and finished, you know, like together with Karyakin, maybe, you know, with 5 or 6 points each. Look, the Karyakin is in competition. Grishuk and Mamedyanov are not. He made this useful margin of 3 points. Of course, no, he's only playing for 2nd place. But is Nakamura's situation so bad as far as 2nd place is concerned? Alright, so first he's gonna play this Sinquefield Cup. It's classical tournament, whatever, but Hikaru usually doesn't play very badly in those. I don't recall a tournament where he finished last. Even when he's in a bad situation, usually he recovers and makes the best out of it in the end. Like in the candidates, when he was -2 and won a couple of games in the end. Even if he was a non-factor fighting for 1st place, no, it's not only face saving, it's rating saving, and in this case, Grand Chess Tour point saving. So, well, I'm thinking, you know, suppose Hikaru has a reasonable tournament in St. Louis, Sinquefield Cup, and finishes maybe in a share of, I don't know, 3rd or 5th place. Comes away with 7 points. His total count after that is gonna be 15. Right? Doesn't seem like much, but you shouldn't forget that immediately after the end of Sinquefield Cup, they're gonna play Rapid and Blitz in St. Louis. In the absence of Magnus Carlsen, Maxim Vachier-Lagrave, and Wesley So, because they already completed their Rapid and Blitz. Besides, they're probably not going to be a Grishuk and Mamedyanov again. Okay, there's going to be Karyakin over there, and Fabiano. I think, you know, Hikaru is a hands-down favorite to win that event, and he's going to take 13 points. That's what I'm driving at. Hikaru is in a pretty good position to fight for 2nd place. I believe it's going to be down the wire. I believe that it's going to be between So, Vachier-Lagrave, and Nakamura, all the way down to the last event where they're all going to play in London. Oh, Rapid Chess is the future for sure. Maybe even the present. I agree that Hikaru kinda... I know, well, he probably listens to us now. Well, he may send me some angry messages, but... Well, Zurich, right? That's what he wins. But that's kinda time control, right? He's just better at that stuff, right? Classical tournament, last Nakamura win in the classical tournament. Yeah, Gibraltar. Okay, it's an open tournament over there. Hikaru grew up on our open tournaments in the US, and he still has the skills and not only the chess skills, mental skills to fight in those open tournaments. Because Swiss tournament, like it's first or bust, pretty much. No, everything else is who cares? And he done it, you know, when he was competing in our opens here, and then he carried it on throughout his career. But all the same, you know, yeah, I kinda agree with you that Hikaru is yet to show his ability to really win a big tournament. Bigger than the US Championship. Bigger than the Zurich exhibition show. Something like real big. I mean, I personally shocked that he's yet to win the World Cup. I think with Hikaru's skills in Rapid and Blitz, well, that he'd use in those tie breaks, maybe he just doesn't like the knockout system. Not used to it, because, well, we never have tournaments in the US with that. We used to have a couple of US championships, But it was way before Hikaru's time. Anyway. More. Okay, so second gift, right? For Magnus. And guess what? He practically didn't need any more gifts. He started beating people up for real. Watch this. Nakamura plays and moves like an old man already. I mean, like plays chess and moves. Moves what? Physically moves? I mean, I haven't really seen him face to face because I don't even watch those videos from tournaments where he plays. I don't know. What do you mean he moves like an old man? I mean, he can't run or whatever. Or what was? He won Tata Steel in 2011. 2011. I think you just proved the point. Okay. Now, we're talking about Magnus, because how does Magnus beat people after they give him a couple of gifts like this? He picks up speed and he picks up confidence. Now, every player plays better when he's on a winning streak. There's confidence. It's growing on you. Winning is contagious. You blame Red Bull. Probably Red Bull is bad for you. No, well, I am obviously looking at me. You probably would not take my advice on nutrition ever, but I mean, just the whole concept of something loaded with sugar and caffeine. Okay, you can probably have it in the morning to kind of, just to kind of snap out of this, and just get going. But to walk around with things like this during the day, the same goes for Starbucks coffee. I look at this as simply evil. People should not be drinking it in such quantities, and throughout the day. But that's just me, the great expert on nutrition. So Magnus opens with his favorite London system, and c5. So Ivanchuk, who plays anything and everything under the sun, goes into some kind of a Indian, whatever, Benoni, whatnot. I mean, most of the time, actually, I played c5 quite often. Nobody ever played d5 against me. And I can tell you why. Because most of the guys who played the London system against me in our open tournaments were somewhat low rated, or no, they just wanted a quiet game. d5 is anything but quiet game. But I mean, think of Magnus, right? He doesn't mind the typical ambitious, pawns in the center space grabbing strategy of a d4 player. He just doesn't like d4 followed by c4 because of mountains of theory. I don't know. Well, I don't know. I never thought of the London system from a point of view of a strong player. I mean, a super strong. I know Kamsky played it. Kamsky, by the way, never played d5. There would be c3 and then e3 and all that in this situation. Somehow d5, to play d5 here, you really have to have a lot of belief in your ability to hold this position, because white is going to push pawns forward, right? And he has this developing but semi-useless move on bishop f4. So white may end up playing some of the typical Benoni or Benko or whatnot positions down a tempo. But Magnus believes he can handle them. It's entirely possible that if we had a thematic tournament where you have to play like... hang on. You have to play the Benoni, right? In every game. Magnus will probably play c4, right? If black is absolutely forced to do this. I think he believes in himself and his ability to handle such positions. It was a really remarkable game. So Vasily goes b5. Now this position is actually quite well known with the bishop on g5 and all that, but the bishop is on f4. Magnus just... I mean, have you ever seen the move bishop f4 in the Benko? I mean, seriously, people. Bishop f4 here. I actually had it once played against me by a grandmaster. It's exactly the same position they got. Now g6 takes, and now e3. Now with this move, Magnus indicates that he doesn't want to help black to facilitate his play with capture on a6 with the bishop, and then that trade, having the white king on f1 and all that. The things that make the banko work. Instead, he wants to recapture on b5 and complete his development. Okay, I should be like the last person to accuse Vasily Ivanchuk, or rather, Vasily Ivanchuk should be the last person I should ever be accusing in routine mechanical play, right? Some kind of autopilot. I mean, Ivanchuk is Mr. Creativity. Yet I don't like the way he played his next few moves. I don't think maybe it's just I don't know if it's fatigue, it's hard to tell, With Ivanchuk you can never tell, He's this big burly guy, I think physically he's pretty strong, even if he's obviously, Anand's age, all that, 48. I think it's mainly the fact that that Vasily wanted to play opening moves a little quicker, because he honestly, he was a little slow in his games. When he played rapid, he was in time trouble, and it cost him, some ridiculous loss against Giri. Well, he was, 3 or... Giri had no pawns. I think that Ivanchuk either lost on time or blundered something when he had 5 extra pawns. And Giri had no pawns whatsoever. Anish had no pawns. So Vasily knows that he has to play a little faster. So he went bishop g7. Okay, what can be better than this move? I'll show you. You gotta hit the d5 pawn. Because these two moves, bishop and f4 and e3, they didn't do much in protecting this pawn. On knight c3, I think you have to play this. Okay, there is d6. I understand. Fair enough, but it's sharp tactical play. You can play knight e4, and then things can happen here. Who knows? I mean, I understand there is this move, but as it goes after d6, white has to give up a very important bishop. He often does it from g5. So that's an extra tempo for black, because the white bishop took some extra moves. I mean, seriously, black absolutely had to hit the d5 pawn. Missed opportunity. No, well, I award bishop g7 a question mark. d6. Once again, was played quickly. Last call. You gotta try to do something. At least on this you take, right? He takes bishop takes b5, but you have a tactical shot. It's possible that Ivanchuk just thought, oh, I'm walking into this fork. But even if he loses the exchange, he's probably gonna get the b2 pawn. He's gonna have a pretty powerful light square bishop, right? And I think you can aim at g2. This looks like an interesting position. Maybe it's very good for black. I mean, losing g2 would certainly hurt a lot. Well, now, how do you play against Magnus Carlsen, right? I mean, if you take your time and try to play your best moves, then you're gonna run out of time, and he's gonna put tremendous pressure on you in later stages of the game. If you try to blitz through the opening, you may get in trouble early and it will never get to the end game. D6. Now, excellent play from Carlsen. And he plays this trademark move, A4, for this line. It's not only to support whatever piece is gonna end up on B5, bishop. It's actually take with the pawn. For you Benko players, this is the last thing you wanna see. The white pawn remaining on B5. It's a double pawn, but it totally restricts your play. And it's like white has an extra pawn on the queen side, and also he has positional advantage. Everything from yesterday, not today. Today was an afterthought. The tournament was over. Yeah, there were some interesting games, and I need to round up with you guys and sit down and write my daily report for ChessBase. I already selected 5 or 6 games over there. But to me, this is Magnus Carlsen show. I had to look at these games. I had to understand why Magnus just came out and scored 7.5 out of 9. Well, this is how he played. Keeps the pawn on B5. Alright, so this it's a little more attractive than usual. This move F5 and those Benoni structures because of the white bishop on F4. But even with the extra tempo, it weakens the black king. One tactical problem there, that if you cannot take the pawn over there because of the pin always. So F5 in some ways fails to win the D5 pawn. So he did this, and now another pin. In this game, I think Carlsen played all the best moves. I really see no fault in his play. Look what he did. He took and castled on move 19. So that's what Kasparov said, right? Other people played Blitz. They tried to play some routine moves to keep some time on their clock. Carlsen was not afraid. Well, he was making also those moves fast, but they were real moves. Surprisingly, in this position, it's all about the pawn on D5, and it simply cannot be captured. If black cannot take this pawn, then he's probably busted. But Ivanchuk couldn't find a way. He did this to protect the queen. Came that move. Probably the right move was to move the bishop back to G7. The bishop is loose on B2. I don't see black being successful in this position. A D5 pawn stands. B6 is a huge threat. How did Carlsen manage to put all of his pieces on best positions in the Blitz game? I don't know. Resigns. 22 moves. Pin. No, well, most importantly, double attack. Yeah, as I said, you know, no, well, you guys can look at those games yourself. And, you're welcome to read my report on ChessBase News main site. I'm gonna write it, you know, so that's gonna be available tomorrow. Tomorrow, I mean, US time. Already today for you in Europe. So anyway, no, well, that gives you an idea, right? So first you obviously, well, everybody plays for themselves, but if you think of the collective effort of players, other players to slow down Magnus Carlsen, they tried this, they tried that, pretty much failed in everything. Only one loss was suffered by Magnus Carlsen, and I think it was in hands of Anish Giri. No, I don't think we can talk about Carlsen, Giri, anything. I mean, Magnus won enough games against Anish. in also other Blitz and Rapid tournaments. So that's where it is. So looking ahead, now, aside of this endless dog and pony show, you know, of Carlsen, Nakamura, Vasheva, Graf, Caruana, and others playing each other, also known as Grand Chess Tour, we have some other important tournaments coming up. Third stage of a Grand Prix tournament is going to take place in Geneva, Switzerland. Now, it's an important tournament because some players already played twice, but they're all going to play like 3 out of 4 of these tournaments. The fourth is in Palma de Mallorca in the fall. The third tournament will pretty much determine who's in contention, who's not. Currently, it's Ding Liren, Shakhriyar Mamedyarov and Ding Liren. Those are the 2 guys that are aiming to take their spots in the candidates. Well, I am very happy for both. You know, I hope they both make it. Well, obviously they're rather deserving players over there, but I would love to see Ding Liren in the candidates tournament. As a matter of fact, I would love to see a match between Magnus Carlsen and Ding Liren. I think, from my knowledge of chess history, and you know I'm a student of chess history, I gotta tell you, you know, so usually a guy kinda comes out of nowhere, you know, and that's the unknown opponent for the world champion. Well, Karyakin did this, right? Carlsen probably didn't expect Karyakin to be his next challenger, right? He probably thought, Caruana, Aronian, no, guys like this. Well, a little bit of a dark horse thing, you know, there. But of course it's too early to talk about this. But anyway, that's the reason why I support Ding Liren, aside of his chess being very attractive and his appearance as a very polite and well-behaved young man. So didn't get killed in the Blitz. He did significantly better than in Paris Blitz. Hussein got killed, you know, he scored -1. 8.5 out of 18. Oh boy. I mean, he managed to hold off Vasheva Graf. It took him, no, extra $5,000 and 2 Grand Chess Tour points. I think Wesley had a great event, and no, he's clearly in contention, as I said, together with Vasheva Graf, and I expect Nakamura to be right there in the mix as the 3 main guys who would fight for the second place on this Grand Chess Tour. But returning to our my talk about the Grand Prix tournament, this event is starting real soon. Some of the players, I believe, Anish Giri, for sure, some of the players of this tournament are going to play. Maybe Jabala even, I'm not sure, but Giri for sure is there. Aronian, I think, too. Interview Norwegian blog shortly before the match. Before the match or before the candidates? No, well, I don't know, but no, well, it doesn't mean, you know, that, well, whatever people say in the TV interview, they just say something. They say, well, I think Karyakin. Well, there were some indications that Karyakin was an upswing. He was the winner of World Cup, and well, there were some indications. But nonetheless, I know, maybe it's not the best example. And after all, okay, that train of thought already left the station. Yeah, MVL, considerably more exciting chess, particularly in rapid and Blitz games. But Wesley kind of buckled down, you know. I actually looked at his games from this event in Leuven. He really was, he's always result-oriented, but he really gave his best, and I think he's rewarded with good result, and I wish Wesley, well, success in future tournaments. Anyway, guys, I don't know, well, if I'm, I need to check the schedule of this tournament. I wanted to cover this Geneva Grand Prix. I believe it starts Thursday. So my usual Thursday show, I would like to push it to the 13th. It's too early to meet, this week. I mean, besides, I had so much work to do with this Paris and Leuven tournaments. I would like to spend some time away from the computer if possible. Thankfully, a lot of my private students went on vacation, so I'm almost looking at a week off. No, not exactly, but much easier schedule, and I would intend to take full advantage of that. So let's just skip the 6th, guys, and let's meet on the 13th. Remember, my shows are usually on Thursdays, and I will be there on the 13th and the 20th, because I can't be here on 27th. I'm out of town. So these are the two next, unless our powers that be here on the Internet Chess Club decide that they wanna, that by popular demand, you have to see and hear Yerma every day. Then I'm gonna be here every day. Hey. But stay tuned and watch for announcements and don't miss my shows. Alright, guys.